They say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. For the people of Grand Bahama, they've been waiting on that single important step on the road to economic recovery. The recent purchase of the Grand Lucayan by the government is said to be and hoped to be a step in the right direction for recovering the tourism industry and getting the economy back on track. Skeptics, though, say otherwise. And then there's the question of whether Grand Bahama can become a real technology hub. Well, in this edition of On the Record, we're going to talk to some folks about the realities of living, working, and doing business in Grand Bahama. It's the second part in a continuing series looking at the realities of life on this island and in this city once called the Magic City. It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins right after this break.
Are you a business person staying for a night, a week, or a month? Holding a meeting for your company or organization? A couple starting your married life with your wedding? Looking for vacation happiness on Grand Bahama Island? We know our happiness will make you happy. You'll see it in the smiles on the faces of our people. Our common goal at Pelican Bay Hotel is to anticipate what you need to be happy and to see that you get it. Visit our website to find everything you need to find happiness at Pelican Bay at Lucaya.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to sbtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want, place your order, and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax through our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
Welcome to On the Record, continuing our series from Grand Bahama, coming to you again from beautiful Pelican Bay. Very fortunate in this episode to continue our discussion on the current state of affairs of Grand Bahama. Very happy to have as my guest Mr. Joe Dovell, a community activist, but also very well known in many regards. He's certainly always in the news and the opinions are very known. Very happy and honored to have you on our show, sir.
Happy to be here, definitely.
Definitely, sir, as well as Pastor Cedric Beckles of Life Community Church. So welcome to On the Record as well.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, first of all, I want to thank you for agreeing and accepting our invitation. We have been, what I describe is really getting into the heart of the issues of Grand Bahama, and not just talking from a desk or a studio in Providence. It was important for us to come and to experience and talk to the people of Grand Bahama about what is happening. And this time we think is so very poignant based on so much that is happening on the island and in some instances still not happening. But I want to take a different view by talking really about the psyche of the people of Grand Bahama. What are people of this island experiencing at this point? And I'll preface that. We are at a situation, a time when government is moving or has moved to purchase the Grand Lucayan, which in their estimation will save the industry, save jobs, possibly do some things. You have that on the table. We have been told in a previous show that there are some things happening or beginning to happen or some beacons of hope economically. But from the perspective of the people of Grand Bahama, where are they? How do they feel? What does all of this mean to them?
I think the general spirit of the Grand Bahamian is one of anticipated hope, but not with much surety. We use the word hope more, I define it more in the sense of how we use the word hope. I'm kind of hoping, I'm expecting something to happen without any great surety, as opposed to hope because there's confidence in what has been said and what has been demonstrated before. So every move that is made here in Grand Bahama in the economic sense adds a little bit of excitement, but usually brings greater depression when there's no follow through that reaches the people.
Right.
That's how I would describe the general state of Grand Bahama.
I've been here for 41 years in Grand Bahama, came here in 1977. And what I noticed immediately back there in 1977 was the fact, kind of similar to what Reverend Beckles is saying, and that is that there's always this anticipation on the part of people in Grand Bahama, particularly in the area of Freeport, Grand Bahama. And there is that sort of lack of owning anything. There is that kind of itinerant disposition that you don't really belong here. It's almost like you're here for a period of time, but then you belong someplace else. Now, that may not be the case in the outer settlements of Grand Bahama because they're more traditional. They have established their homes there for a very long time. So this is why I love to go East End, and I love to go to West End. I love to go to Pinders Point, Louisiana, and so on. Because there seems to be more of a down-home spirit. In Freeport, that isn't the case. Now, when you translate that into the expectancy of the people, they do not have a high expectancy of actually becoming part and parcel of Freeport. And I think that is upon the basis of many traditional things that have happened here. Freeport not being really an integral part of the Bahamas. It is a place that is owned by foreigners. The land is owned, the businesses were owned initially by foreigners almost totally. And so there isn't that integration or that soul connection to the soil in Freeport. And to a certain extent, that has permeated throughout the island because people look to Freeport for leadership. They look to Freeport for success in businesses and so forth. And so when they see the depression within the economy, then they too become kind of depressed about the whole
domino
situation.
effect.
That's right, exactly.
Interesting. And one of the things that I discovered in talking to some residents outside of Freeport, and I wanted to say it was so important for us to get outside of Freeport proper and go to the communities to understand the different dynamics. And one of the things that I discovered, and I asked quite a few people, is do you feel a sense of hopelessness? Do you feel hopeless, or do you feel as if something is about to start or could happen away? And by and large, people were interested in what was happening, but I got a sense, and in some instances was told outright, we have given up, or we do feel hopeless, but we're trying to do the best we can, but we're not very optimistic.
Well, if you go back to 2008, Grand Bahama has been in a spin for 10 years.
Just 10?
Well, using the 2008
right.
to 2018.
That decade, okay.
Since that time, we've had change of political parties.
Right.
Each party promotes a certain amount of what I call election rhetoric that does bring a little bit of anticipation and hope. Then that party wins and nothing follows through. The other party does the same thing. The other entities here that have authorities, they say they're working on things. And so after 10 years, you begin not to believe anyone.
Good point.
And that's the point that the Grand Bahamian is at. We've heard so many promises from, at the time, what appeared to be credible entities, whether political parties, other entities. And it's almost like for 10 years, we are people living in a pipe with the pipeline with no hope, and there's no light in the pipeline. We've heard pipeline so many times that something is in the pipeline, and we're wondering if the pipeline is 15 years long, but we've only been in for 10 years because we don't see anything. So we now have to make it on our own. We literally have to create our own entities to make ourselves survive.
Why just in a 10-year context? And the reason I ask this is because I know as a younger than I am now, coming to Grand Bahama on the weekends to party with my friends. I mean, when I was in college, we would come, it was the Magic City. I mean, and it wasn't a coincidence that it was called that. I marveled at the International Bazaar the first time I walked in it. The Princess Hotel at the time, to me, it was like Vegas. You know, there was something magic about it. And then suddenly, over a period of time, it began to lose that magic. So I'm asking, is it just 10 years, or was it even before that we saw this light start to dim?
I use the 10-year figure simply because of the Royal Oasis and that entity. But my simple philosophy is this: whether we put it on the government or the Port Authority, the philosophy and the plan that drove Freeport to be the Magic City, the change in time and the change in people, the system didn't keep up with that. So the magic died. That magic was exciting for a set of people that are no longer the people that you're marketing to today. And I firmly believe that the government and the Port Authority have not kept up to create magic for the current set of people that we're marketing to.
I mean, I think he's speaking the truth to the situation, and it goes way beyond 10 years.
Yeah.
I think some of the very powerful hurricanes that we've had have exacerbated the situation. But something that Reverend Beckel said to me before the show, and that is that we don't seem to be self-generating people in Grand Bahama, particularly in Freeport. We're waiting. We're always waiting. We're hoping. I talk often to a number of men, older guys and younger guys, and they say, you know, Mr. D, I wake up every morning and I hope that something is going to really happen. And we hang on to that hope from every 5 years. We think all of a sudden this glorious thing is going to come down upon us and everything is going to be right in Freeport. But that's not going to happen. And the reason is that we are still part of what I call a parasitic economy, that we have depended so long on drug running, rum running, gun running, people running, all the kind of runnings. And even tourism is really a parasitic economy.
And the numbers.
And the numbers, yeah, not even talking about that. Well, that seems to be the only industry that's self-generating here.
Generating quite a bit of money.
So what happens is that, you know, we don't have that creativity. And I don't know whether or not it's been stymied by the fact that we still are looked upon as what I would call, and I don't want to use the term here, I use it very often, but we are almost like indentured slaves on a plantation. That's the view that a lot of people, not only in Grand Bahama, but in the Bahamas have, that we have no power, that we elect officials to do our bidding, and they do their own bidding in order to perpetuate their power from every 5 years. And so we have never come to stand firm and resolute that we are a free people and we can generate from ourselves the type of living conditions, the type of economy that we really want.
When you say generate, are you talking about entrepreneurship? Are you talking about ownership in business and industry? When you say self-generating, I mean, I want us to say, what can Grand Bahamians do to improve their own situation?
Well, the problem is that even with the people who have the financial resources, there is an anxiety and fear there to really invest it in entrepreneurship, into businesses that can hire or employ.
So if you don't invest in your own community,
that's it. It's going to die because we expect from the outside. You know, just like now with the sale of the hotel. And
we
now,
have to deep into that. I'm saving a good chunk of time to talk about
okay,
that.
good. Okay, I just want to say then that, you know, in the interim, there has been no creativity, no generation of sort of self-creating forces or economic viability coming from our people. Like, we are still stuck that, you know, the white man from abroad got to bring it here for us. And the problem is, too, that even our black brothers and sisters who have, to a very small extent, benefited significantly and handsomely from all that the white foreigners have brought to this country, and particularly in Grand Bahama, they hold on to those resources.
They do have plenty of money.
I know. They don't want to
Yeah.
invest it to create that type of economy that we can call our own economy in the Bahamas. So as far as I can see into the future, we're going to be so dependent upon external forces.
Is there a tale of two Grand Bahamas? And by that I mean, is there a group of those who are admittedly doing well and are okay, and those who are really suffering and doing very badly? And is there a huge disconnect in those two? I'm going to say, a lot of times we hear from those who are doing very badly, but is there a huge disconnect?
There is a huge disconnect, and it does not matter what system, society, community you go in, you would always have those who are doing better.
Of course.
That's just the way the system
That is
works.
that's life, and that's anywhere in the world.
Right. Generally, though, the pain comes from, the noise comes from the ones with the most pain. And in this particular case, there's a huge disconnect between those who are surviving and those who are not surviving. Going back to the question you asked and what Mr. Darwell asked, I believe that there are, keeping it in the context of the program, there are three wheels that must turn if a society is going to generate its own income. In this particular case, one wheel is the government, a second wheel is the Port Authority, and the third wheel is the citizenship. The citizenship wheel could only be turned by the citizens to the degree that the Port Authority and the government provides the necessary legislations for that wheel to turn. The government can only do so much because they can't turn the other two entities. The other two entities can't turn, or one entity can't turn the others. In order for the Bahamian in Grand Bahama to create its own economy, some things have to be relaxed. Certain regulations must be relaxed.
That's something that I keep hearing. There is no ease of doing business.
No, it's not easy. It's not easy. The demands, and I am not saying that the demands that are placed on us are unreasonable, but in the state that we're in, they're unreasonable.
In the current context.
So I go back to my wheel illustration. The average Joe Blow in Grand Bahama cannot turn his own citizenship wheel because the legislations on the other two entities are so strangling that you cannot invest to get the kind of return with the regulations that exist as it once was.
And you have that have and have-nots. The haves, particularly because there were a number of black Bahamians and a few white Bahamians who were intimately connected to the Grand Bahama Port Authority in the beginning. And so they were able to accrue a lot of benefits, financial opportunities in that regard, whereas the major part of the populace did not. And so if these individuals are not inclined to put out some of their funds to actually begin to grow or revive the economy, we're going to be in a slump for a very long time. You don't want to get into the hotel situation yet.
Right after the break.
But the fact is that we have to look at a more equanimity across the board. There are too many generating forces that create economy, money in Grand Bahama that are external to the country. And therefore, there is a lot of money which is going out of the country, or there are individuals who are in control of these particular entities, and they are not inclined. Later on, I want to talk about Edward St. George in particular.
We will take a break, sir. Good point. Good time for us to take a break. We're going to talk about the tale of the Grand Lucayan, Oban, even more economy in general. We are in the midst of a discussion on Grand Bahama, coming to you from Pelican Bay. You're watching On the Record. We are back right after this.
Are you a business person staying for a night, a week, or a month? Holding a meeting for your company or organization? A couple starting your married life with your wedding? Looking for vacation happiness on Grand Bahama Island? We know our happiness will make you happy. You'll see it in the smiles on the faces of our people. Our common goal at Pelican Bay Hotel is to anticipate what you need to be happy and to see that you get it. Visit our website to find everything you need to find happiness at Pelican Bay at Lucaya.
Hi, I'm Davriel, and welcome to Rev Tips, where we answer your most important Rev service questions. Today, I want to talk to you about the exciting new Rev Go Play app. But how does it work? Well, you start by opening a Cable Bahamas My account, so you can take your TV everywhere. Here's a few notes to get you started watching TV on the go. Step 1. Create a Cable Bahamas My account. Step 2. Download the latest version of the RevGo Play app from the Google Play or iTunes App Store. Step 3. Log into the app using your email and My account password. Step 4. Enjoy your Rev TV on the go. Well, that's our Rev tip for today. Be sure to join us next time for more information on how to get the best out of all your Rev services.
What do you think about government, this proposed deal with Oban to bring in this plant they want to put in East End?
It would have been good, but I think they shut that down, right? I think they shut it down, but they should be more focused on like starting back up with the game. That should be priority number one because that's basically out of the ground already. So work on that to begin with.
What do you all need? If you had an opportunity now to turn things around, to see things turn around, what would you want?
What we really need is to figure out a way now how to get West End back to the tourist destination and rather efficient village. You know, the government the other day, we had a town meeting here the other day where we have some more development coming down here with the Bahama Bay project and the Green project, and that gave us a lot of hope. You know, that brings our hopes up to now figure out that we finally going to turn this place back from a fishing village back to a tourist destination again.
Like
So
75.
how's this area right here doing McLeanstown?
Well,
how's it doing?
well, McLeanstown is more like different. You know, it's like it's like you know, you almost could say like you could deal with it because most folks here we depend on the water. You know, like fish, conch, crawfish, and stuff like that. But still, it's a hurt because what happened? We don't have the prices for them. When we want to make money, the prices, government keep the prices. And then they start saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. The law is on that, a bond this, a bond that. But if you bond that, where you leave us right now, we depend on that. Where else we going? You ain't got no job for us to work on. We depend on the sea. Where else do we go? Where are we going? You understand what I'm saying? Where are we going?
Welcome back to On the Record. We are coming to you from on location in Grand Bahama at the beautiful Pelican Bay Resort. My guests, Joe Darwell and Pastor Cedric Beckles. Gentlemen, this period of time for Grand Bahama really is significant in many ways. The government has found itself back in the hotel business, having purchased the Grand Bucayan. In a previous show, we would have spoken at length about that, but one of the things I asked the Minister for Grand Bahama was, you know, is it that government has put all of its eggs in the basket of the Grand Bucayan as the rescue for the economy? And he said, no, there were other things going on. But from your perspective, what does the purchase of this hotel mean? Was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? If so, you know, what could have been some of the alternatives?
To protect 400 jobs, that is a good spirit booster for Freeport, for Grand Bahama. I would like to believe, though, that there is more to the package than just preserving 400 jobs. The tourism product in Grand Bahama needs fixing. So I would like to believe that along with the purchase of the hotel, if there is a promotional package that can help toward fixing the tourism product in Grand Bahama, then I think it would be a good deal. If it is only going to preserve the 400 jobs, they will eventually lose the 400 jobs, because if the tourism product is not improved, there will be no one coming, and we'll still have to lose the 400 jobs.
Contrary to a colleague of mine who thinks it was really a bad move, I feel, for the simple reason, as been mentioned by my colleague here, it has boosted the psychological well-being of the people in Grand Bahama.
Why is that important?
That is terribly important, because if you look at the straw vendors, the straw market here in Grand Bahama, those people have not been able to earn anything substantially for at least 7 or 8, 9 years. And now they have a glimmer of hope that some dollars will come their way. People will begin to fill the hotels, hopefully. I have an objection with respect to whether or not the government is going to run the hotel. I'm hoping that they bring in some sort of managing team who can actually run the hotel independently of government.
It's not a good idea for government to run business.
That is critically important, because you don't want it to become a center of cronyism on Grand Bahama, which situation like
Two
that.
words, hotel corporation.
Yeah, hotel corporation, exactly. So we want to make
that.
sure it's run independently, it's run like a professional entity on Grand Bahama. And so at least for that, well, one thing I want to mention here with respect to the $10 million that were put down, I hope that the government has accessed the insurance that came from the damage done to the hotel. That is critically important, because as far as I know, that was a huge sum of money that Hutchison Whampoa got as a result of the damage done there. So the government can use that, hopefully, to begin to renovate the facility.
Well, the Prime Minister has promised full disclosure on this and other things relative to Grand Bahama on the 16th of September when he speaks to the House of Assembly. So hopefully a lot of the questions that I have, you have, and Bahamians in general have will be answered at that point. But certainly I'm sure there will be even more and more for discussion. Another area I want to touch, in February, the government would have come forward with the intention of putting a facility in East Grand Bahama, the Oban deal I call it, which met with huge controversy. Mr. Dowell yourself was one of those who spoke out against it. Some of the people I spoke with, I asked outright, if they thought it was a good deal, and these are Grand Bahamians, and they would have said to me outright, Mr. Sawyer, we need jobs. And one of the things that I've always said, that we in Nassau will sit comfortably in the conditions that we are in and have commentary and pass judgment and say yay or nay, but we are not living it every day. And so it was important to get a feel for what Grand Bahamians thought. But there is a concern. Mr. Dowell, I'll start with you from an economic
Well, I think I'm on the record in unequivocal objection to any oil refinery being built any place in the Bahamas, much less on a stretch of 7 miles of pristine beaches out east. There is no doubt people are craving for jobs. I mean, I've spoken to dozens of people in East End. Some people who have never worked, they have no skills whatsoever. So what kind of jobs are they going to get? They were promised 600 jobs in 10 years, which means 60 jobs per year. My God, with that beautiful landscape of incredible pristine beaches, coral reefs, deep water, bonefish by the thousands, we could have small economic development along there that could employ 300 people immediately.
Why haven't we had it? Why? Where are the investments? Where are the people to do these things? I drove there and I thought to myself, these are untapped resources.
You saw that?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, we drove and saw no one and nothing for miles. And I thought, well, here is a prime opportunity. Why have we not invested or done the things and made this an ecotourism site that it could be?
Yeah, but there's some bonefish villages along
there
there,
are a few sites
and
along
they're
there.
doing extremely well.
Okay.
And they told me themselves that we could do it 8 or 10 more along here, because then we can attract more tourists to come to do fly fishing. And I mean, that's as far as the economic situation is concerned. The people need jobs, but there's another more sensible way to employ the people rather than destroying the environment. You're talking about 5 ecosystems that would be destroyed immediately. You're coming in from the deep water. which has to be dredged also. Then you come into the shallower water where there are coral reefs and where the fish by the thousands out there, deep water fish. You got red snapper, lane snapper.
Why are you only catching these fish and selling them to Nassau?
Huh?
Why aren't people catching these fish
Oh,
and
they
selling them
do.
to Nassau?
They sell them all the time here in Grand Bahama.
We need them in
Not
Nassau.
the,
Really, go ahead,
well,
sir.
the people from Abaco bring all the fish to Nassau. So. But I mean, the fact is, if you go out there and, I mean, miles and miles. My wife and I go out there almost every Sunday, and you can't see anyone around for miles.
Good stuff. Okay, sir.
This is where I have the problem, going back to how we started the program. As a nation, we must decide exactly what categories of investments we're going to go into. I am all for preserving the environment, especially the oceans. I'm really heavy on that. At the same time, though, I don't understand why would leadership bring a project to the country that has so many variables to it. See, because you have one end, this is what I'm talking about, where you have hope and then it's dashed. The people who was interested only in the jobs, their hope escalated when they heard about Oban and the possible employment and the different opportunities. Now that same hope has been dashed because no, we've got environmental issues that cannot be met. And I'm not criticizing environmental issues. I'm simply saying how
the reality of
these are the things that create the emotional swing and the emotional up and downs in our people. Just make up your mind that we are going to deal with oil refineries and these are the conditions, or we're not going to deal with oil refineries, period. But don't bring people in where hope is increased and then it's dashed with other issues that we should have known about a long time. That's my issue when it comes to Grand Bahama and in general the investment in the country.
It's a very good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. I want to go back though to something that we started to delve into, and really some of the things that are prohibiting growth in this community. Economists, anybody who knows anything about the economy will tell you that small businesses, small, medium to size businesses, entrepreneurship, those are the things that drive an economy. Those are the engines. But it is, and I'm told this over and over again, it is so difficult to start a business in this community. Why? And why has it been allowed to go on for so long, seemingly unchecked, when there is a strangle, on the economy of this island?
I'm going to say something that may be taken out of context because I'm a preacher. But in the city of Freeport, there is a viable, underground, illegal economy. And I'm not referring to illegal substances either. I'm talking about entities that are conducting business in their homes and in their back trunks and so forth. They're surviving. And I'm not promoting violating the law.
Why do they have to operate illegally?
Because the laws of the city of Freeport do not permit those types of things legally. So my point is this: if we have a viable, striving economy that's operating illegally without selling illegal substances, why not legalize that particular industry to the point where the guy who wants to be honest and above board can do those same things without having to run from the law?
We did it for the gaming industry.
And we do it all the time. If the small man is going to generate that, going back to those 3 wheels I spoke about, if I'm going to turn my own wheels, it is up to the government and the Port Authority to make it easy for me to turn my wheels and still maintain the law and order in the country. It's not easy.
Is the Port Authority strangling this island?
The Port Authority, to a very great extent, is strangling the Freeport area. Example is exactly what Reverend Beckles has pointed out. If the ordinary person with a couple $1,000 that can establish a business, if it were easy for them to get a license to operate, to be assisted by the Port Authority and by the government to establish a legitimate locale to operate legally, we could have a lot of individual small businesses going on in Grand Bahama. But they do not give that incentive to our people, unfortunately. And again, it's simply because the ordinary black citizen on this island doesn't have that level of appreciation coming from the powers that be. And so, that kind of, again, what they call plantations syndrome, that, you stay down there, Even if some of these things are known by the powers that be, and they leave them alone because they know if they go in there and bother with them too much. And I know a couple of them myself, and I support them.
Shortly after attaining majority rule, late Sir Lyndon Finley would have delivered that bend or break speech to the Port Authority. Is that thinking relevant today? Is it time for the dismantling or restructuring? Is it time now for something different or something to be done differently?
What I think is this, it goes back to what I said in the first half of the program. The clientele that the Port Authority had 20, 30 years ago was a foreign clientele that came here with pockets full of money.
Right.
So what was required of them to pay was literally pocket change.
Right.
Your clientele has changed so drastically today that your clientele is basically now Bahamians who do not have the pockets of money that your former clientele would have had. That's why I believe, going back to what I said earlier, the philosophical view of who you're managing today from the Port Authority is not kept up with the current clientele that the Port Authority has.
Put it in very good context.
And to put a little bit more onto that, the fact is that you do not have that magnificent spirit of development within the domain of the Grand Bahama Port Authority right now, like you had with St. George and Sir Jack. They're gone, and it seems as if there is a survival mentality there now. I got to get enough so that when I get old enough and I get out of here, I can go elsewhere and live royally.
Dash, grab and dash. Gentlemen, thank you so very much, Mr. Joe Darville, Pastor Cedric Beckles. Thank you for coming on and providing some insight. I honestly say, I can say that this has given me a greater appreciation for what is happening in Grand Bahama and certainly what people of this island are facing. Thank you so very much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Thank you too very
Folks,
much.
stay with us. Our discussion continues. We are going to continue with who I call some ordinary Grand Bahamians who are living it day to day. Stay with us. On the Record continues from Pelican Bay.
Are you a business person staying for a night, a week, or a month? Holding a meeting for your company or organization? A couple starting your married life with your wedding? Looking for vacation happiness on Grand Bahama Island? We know our happiness will make you happy. You'll see it in the smiles on the faces of our people. Our common goal at Pelican Bay Hotel is to anticipate what you need to be happy and to see that you get it. Visit our website to find everything you need to find happiness at Pelican Bay at Lucaya.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to SBTJapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want. Place your order and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
We are in our second season of On the Record, and we thank you, our viewing audience, for allowing us into your homes every Thursday at 8 p.m. We value your opinion, and we want you to be a part of our discussions. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and comment on our exciting topics. Remember, it's all on the record.
Cam, first of all, tell us what is life like in Grand Bahama, day to day for you and for your family and others, that you see and live with every day.
Well, I mean, the struggle is real. Grand Bahama has been sitting like this for quite a amount of years, but I have a job. I wouldn't complain because I have a job. Plenty of people don't. and I'm making it. I wouldn't say it's great, but I'm making it, so I wouldn't complain.
What kind of industries, what kind of things does Grand Bahama need? I know you talked about the hotel and you think that would be a good idea to purchase, but what do you think will make Grand Bahama work?
Right now, anything. Because the port authority have a clamp on Grand Bahama. So
What you mean by a clamp?
the fee is for docking, for the ships alone, and for the airport. Right now, to catch a flight from here to Miami is so expensive. It's cheaper to go to Family Island or even from Nassau to Miami cheaper than from Freeport to Miami, and that's only 45 minutes away. So we got to do something with the port from the start.
So, if you had an opportunity now, just me and you talking, what would you say you tell me now that's really needed to get things going in this part of Grand Bahama?
We need jobs for the people. A job.
What kind of jobs?
All type of jobs. Everybody do different jobs. Some go in the bush, some buy custom-made. Some do construction.
Government is looking at putting this Oban project here. What do you think about that?
We've been talking with plenty of things you can put in Grand Bahama. I ain't seen nothing yet.
You feel neglected?
Yeah.
You feel like you all have been abandoned?
Yeah. Yeah, abandoned.
And we are back. More on the record from beautiful Pelican Bay, continuing our discussion in our series on Grand Bahama. I'd like to welcome to our set Gwen Porter, who is a business owner here in Grand Bahama. So glad to have you on. I told you just before we started, you have the distinction of being the only woman out of a 2-show series, so you have a lot of responsibility today. Thank you for coming. Also, Mr. John Bridgewater, he is a business owner and also representing, I think, the voice of a very important segment, and that is the young people. I think the young people in any setting and dispensation or part of the Bahamas, that voice is very important, but certainly here in Grand Bahama. So I'm going to start, first of all, by asking you to tell us a little bit about the businesses or the businesses you are involved with here on the island.
Okay, we currently own or manage Dive and Bar and Grill, Unexo. For about 6 months now, we've had it. We took it over after the previous group was left. And from that, also, my husband owns a real estate company, and I work for him. Short-term rentals, all the property management, the accounting for the business. And then we're in that business, the restaurant business, with my daughter and her husband, who are many businesses on the island. So we're very, very well diverse in small business in the island.
Good.
Currently, I'm the Chief Investment Officer of HGOC Limited. We're a blockchain technology company focused on developing solutions for the masses in terms of interoperability and the ease of doing business. I'm also the Chief Executive Officer of BitLabs. We're another blockchain development company focused on financial technology solutions. So I'm more of the tech generation trying to promote more of a smart city initiative in the country.
Well, I think I could not have asked for a better grouping because of what we are talking about. One of the themes that has really played out in both of the shows that I've done up to this point has been the ease of doing business or lack thereof, and a lot of the impediments that business owners, business people, people even trying to start a business are faced with. And I want to get your perspective on what is it like to start up and operate a business on Grand Bahama, and keeping in mind too that the Freeport area is obviously very different in composition than your East End or your West End, 8 Mile, Rock, Pinder's Point, etc., those areas outside of the city. But Gordon, I'm going to start with you.
Well, small businesses here stand in a very difficult position because of the cost of licensing to start with. Licensing is very expensive in Freeport. And then you have your power, your cable, your rental, first, last, security. And that's even if you were going to rent property. just saying renting property, you usually have to come up with first, last security, and it's very costly. So to start up, that point is big. Then your advertising aspect comes along. And if you wanted to turn around and bring in product, or you're purchasing product locally, now you're looking at 12% VAT. And for me, 12% VAT, 15% gratuity, before people sit down and eat a meal in a restaurant here, you're looking at 27% before a check even comes to them. So in running a restaurant, which what we do, it's a very difficult thing to try to get people interested when it's hard for them to think about going to the grocery store and just buying food to feed their own selves. You know, with the economy the way it is, it's very difficult.
John, from your perspective, you're involved in a very different type of business.
Yes. Well, for us, Jerome, we're actually based out of Nassau right now, and but we do have the perspective to actually launch in Freeport. But given that our industry is so new, we have to work with existing regulations, which is structuring investment funds, in order to do our various day trades and actually aggregating capital. The government is looking to do legislation to welcome our industry. I'm very excited for that, but currently there is no business license that we actually fall under within the port area for both businesses.
I find that interesting because in last November, the government would have initiated this tech conference here and brought in all these companies and talked about, making Grand Bahama now, or creating a third industry in terms of pillar industries, the technology industry. And I would have thought that one of the first things they would have done would to put the proper regulations in place to address these burgeoning technology-based businesses.
Well, it's not as easy as a lot of Bahamians think it is. It's really, really not, because countries around the world are still scrambling, trying to figure out how best to regulate the industry. You don't want to over-regulate it where you don't have time to grow, and then you don't want to under-regulate it for newcomers to actually exploit and abuse the system. So you have to look at existing regulation all over the world, compile that by looking at how the Bahamas is situated, what makes the Bahamas more unique than those other countries, and then you tailor legislation. So having those kinds of initiatives is good, but you have to now pull those industry professionals or those that are actually in the industry every day looking at those same legislations to help build our legislation now.
This is a question for both of you. Is this community, is this island, is this economy ready for that other industry, for the onslaught of technology-based businesses, for the changes that will bring? Because in many instances, I can start a technology-based business by myself at home, sitting in front of a laptop.
That's it. Tech nomads. Tech nomads. That's what we're called.
Is this community ready for what that could possibly bring?
I think so. I surely think so, and I think so mainly because the Bahamas is demographic. You're looking at a population of, no more than 400,000 people, but the demographics is 40 and under is 73%. 73% of the entire population is 40 and under. That tells you something. And everyone now, they're either in their phones, they're on their tablets, in their laptops. There's no need to actually be in an office space anymore. You can actually be remote. I could be in Dubai and I can be doing work at the office. Mm-hmm. But it's the small initiatives that make a city smart. So that goes where it's smart power. Garmama Power now has smart metering in place. Solar power lights. We just got the speedometers out there on the road that are solar powered. It's the small initiatives, but you have to take the initiatives further. You have to now start to say, okay, well, what else could we do small that'll help make the city much more smart, that'll make it much more easy accessible for people.
Attractive. Mm-hmm.
I agree completely in the fact that I believe that technology is a hub here that's just ready to blow. It's wonderful. In real estate, most of the clients, we were speaking earlier, most of the clients that we meet are looking at us from all over the world on MLS, the Bahamas MLS. So They will contact us through the MLS, tell us when they're coming in town.
Explain to our audience what MLS is.
Bahamas MLS is the multiple listing site.
Okay.
You have to be a realtor, broker in order to be able to put your properties up there.
Mhm.
You have to have an agreement that's listed that says that you're able to sell that property. So it's a regulated site.
And again, who are the people that are on there looking?
Well, for instance, anywhere I go, if I'm going to go rent somewhere, I'm going to look at VRBO. I'm going to look Airbnb if I want to go and rent somewhere instead of staying in a hotel.
Sure.
Family's going away and we want to rent a house. So I go on those sites. Most people around the world, when they think about the Bahamas, first thing they start to do is Google the Bahamas.
Yes.
And they want to see the Bahamas. What is
Correct.
it?
Correct.
Freeport, wow, lots of space, lots of things here. Good infrastructure, great place to maybe live, second home, or move myself to completely. And then they start to search, because all over the world there's MLS, multiple listing sites for, if you're going to Ontario, you could look at their MLS sites. It's different. You don't have to know a real estate agency name anymore. You just go on an MLS and look. And so many times we just get emails and people are coming to town and they want to look at these 5 properties or this 5 rentals, and we take them through, and that's how we meet. And that's a different way of doing business. You don't have to have an office. You don't have to have a big office.
It's more
where people,
social.
It's absolutely
more social.
right. And when this deal signs and closes, you go to the lawyer's office to do it.
When interesting you would we'd get to this point in our discussion, because then you look at the focus and the attention on saving the Grand Lucayan and what that means. And then I start to ask myself, well then, how does that translate for you? What does that mean for you? Do you have the same interests as the person who wants to set up a frozen ice cream store somewhere? Is it the same? Are you as vested, and are you getting the same level of attention from government?
Well, in terms of the acquisition itself?
Yeah, I mean, what does it mean for you?
To be honest, I think it was a very strategic move. It was a very, very strategic move on behalf of the government, and I think it was a good move. Why? Because, well, you looked at a lot of different investors coming in. For the past 2 years, the resort has been shuttered. Different investors have been coming in, but none of them really had an exact plan as to what to do with it. I always tell people who I conversate with, you can acquire something, it's fine, but then you have an asset. What are you going to do? What are you going to do now with that asset to make it valuable? The government has vocally said that, listen, we intend to just acquire it, to save the jobs, get it up and running, get it renovated, to then relist it to another buyer who has a vision. And in our industry, my team and I, we've looked at a few potential solutions for the resort. And one of them happened to be turning the resort into a fully cryptocurrency resort, a full digital resort. Bahama has already laid the infrastructure for it. You can't use no cash, period. Mm-hmm. Now, for us, it's about taking that next step and turning it into, okay, the cryptocurrencies to make it more secure and capitalizing off of the booming industry of cryptocurrencies, which is at $200 billion market cap now, but last year it was at $600 billion at its peak. And this is an industry that just came on stream 8 years ago.
Tremendous.
Well, for me, I have a different perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and the perspective is that I am a business owner here, a small business owner. We employ 15 people. We are right near the resort. We're at UNEXO, and it's important for us to ensure that we not only give good quality and such, but that we keep our people employed. We picked them for a reason. We chose them. We went through an interview process, and we invested in a time when most people were not investing. It might not be, we didn't have to buy the property, and no, we lease it, but it doesn't matter. It was a good deal of money in any event. We don't want to lose, and so I'm excited about this. I've always felt this about Grand Bahama. The people here are very tenacious. They hold on, they grab on, and they hope and they wish. Yes, get frustrated, yes, but there's still hope here. I don't think that the hope is gone. I do think there's a little bit more light now. I'm certainly hopeful that this deal might go through. I also feel that there's probably an ultra plan that we don't know nothing, anything about, such as it's really being purchased for someone because the inability to sit down and negotiate with the other side and get it out of the way. So to me, anything that they can do to help. I was here in 2004 when, you know, Rural Oasis went down and the double hurricanes, and then Xanadu closed, and then
I forgot about Xanadu.
that's right, and this, and so there's many different aspects to what have happened over here since 2004. But when I first moved here in 2002, you know, it was amazing because I was going to the bazaar, and the bazaar was huge, and there was so many things to do. And my husband's family owns business around there, so there was a lot of life. And what you saw happen after 2004 went on a very
rapid decline.
Rapid decline, absolutely.
And I remember, you know, I may be very young, but I remember. I actually remember this atmosphere. I remember going into the bazaar. My grandfather operates one of the largest tour companies in the Bahamas, specifically here on Grand Bahama. So I remember going to his office in the bazaar. I remember going into the Water Oasis, etc.
I'm older than you, and I have really great memories as well. First, you've got to take a quick break in the show.
Are you a business person staying for a night, a week, or a month? Holding a meeting for your company or organization? A couple starting your married life with your wedding? Looking for vacation happiness on Grand Bahama Island? We know our happiness will make you happy. You'll see it in the smiles on the faces of our people. Our common goal at Pelican Bay Hotel is to anticipate what you need to be happy and to see that you get it. Visit our website to find everything you need to find happiness at Pelican Bay at Lucaya.
Every time I'm in the Bahamas, I use Rev Go Play.
Here come that fool. It's packing. Here he comes.
Yo.
Wait, Omar coming?
Boy, this Rev Go Play, solid.
Rev, you and us together.
And welcome back. You're watching On the Record. We're coming to you from Grand Bahama atop the Pelican Bay Resort, where we have been hosting a series of shows in Grand Bahama. This is the second of two, and certainly has given us some wonderful insight. We decided to return and to do these shows based on a conversation that we started months ago when we were here. Happy to have as my continued guest in this segment, Gwen Porter, as well as John Bridgewater. We started our journey, when I say we, I'm talking about our On the Record crew. We started back in November when we were invited to do our show here during the Technology Summit. We thought it was something different, particularly for this island. And we talked a little bit about, you know, the potential from a technology perspective for this island. But when you look at, for instance, if you're trying to revitalize an economy and if you're trying to grow businesses, you obviously will need a workforce, which now brings me to another point. How prepared is the workforce on Grand Bahama for what could potentially come? A lot of times there is always angst about non-Bahamians, about foreigners being hired to do work that we say Bahamians could and should be doing. But the pushback is always, we cannot find the qualified individuals to fulfill these roles. And then there's always a discussion, I call it a seesaw, about whether there are people, whether they are looking and who's training. But you know, that's always a concern about the readiness of the workforce. Gwen, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, in 2008, I moved away from here and went to Nassau and worked. And I worked in human resources for a major hotel over there. I was in charge of all the hiring and the payroll and such. And what I continuously ran across were people from Freeport. Great to many people from Freeport, and traveling throughout the Bahamas, many people from Freeport have found themselves in other circumstances in other places because of the fact businesses have been closed here for so many years. As we talked, the two big closing in 2004, and then the next time Arlequire closed, they've run out to other islands. They still own property here, they still own homes here. Some of them have been lucky enough to rent them out. Some of them haven't, but they want to come home. So I believe that we do have very qualified people in the Bahamas to come and work here, and they will be happy. They'll be happy to run home. I feel sorry for the businesses that they'll be leaving because they've gained so much insight in working for some of the major resorts in the Bahamas. And they'll come back and add that here.
Well, when it comes to the technology aspect of it and the whole workforce, we're still preparing kids to come out of school to work at hotels and stuff when you really look at it. And the services industry is under threat by our industry, which is the tech industry. Artificial intelligence, robotics, these are the technology initiatives being developed all around the world to make these jobs obsolete. Soon enough, you're going to be checking into a resort and the only thing you're going to see is a kiosk. There's going to be no man or woman manning the resort, manning the desk. There isn't going to be a baggage guy to take your bags.
You see it at airports now.
You see it at airports right now, and some resorts around the world are doing it. Bahama has already started implementing a lot of technology initiatives that are making the jobs obsolete. So you have to start preparing the next generation, and even the generation now, for what's already happening, right?
But people have to fix those kiosks. People have to program them, and so
Exactly.
the manpower is needed. But can you go from being a front desk clerk to an IT
Of course you
specialist?
can.
Oh, I
anything,
think so.
anything is possible once you can actually do it, right? So I think holding workshops are very important to helping that push. So where technology replaces one job, like you said, you have to have someone to go in and fix it, right? So you can have workshops. You can actually go on YouTube. YouTube is the biggest school today. You don't even need to actually really go to college to learn anything. You go on YouTube and you learn how to fix things. You learn how to
A bunch of
assemble
my friends
things.
have just cringed because their children are watching this and going, "See, Mom?"
I'm rooting for you.
It's very true. It is. Absolutely.
It is. And I think a lot of focus is not put into technology as much as it should. Like I said earlier, the demographics are 73% of the population is 40 and under. In the next 10 years, that population is going to double. It's going to actually grow to a tremendous 76, 78%. So soon enough, the baby boomers 1 and 2, are going to be obsolete. But they're not ready. You have young Bahamians abroad that I speak to on a daily basis. They're getting their degrees in industries that are deemed irrelevant when they come back home. They're overqualified, or you can't pay. How could you not pay me? How am I so qualified that you cannot pay me? So what that does is it puts a bad taste in the mouths of young Bahamians that say, I'm not going to come home for you to...
Why should I bother?
Why should I even bother? You're not going to pay me what the foreigner is going to pay me, my own Bahamian people, but you want me to come home. There's no balance.
I think there's also a stigma on youth
Yes.
here, and that's basically from the population being an elderly population. I came from a different country, so my view on it is very different. Youth is so important. I've got grandchildren that live here, and I see them every day, and the things that they do are amazing compared to what we did as kids. But I think that I agree with you, the fact Bahamians that are off at school, young Bahamians off at school, come home, they want to try to work here. They're not respected. Their degree means very little. It's a degree without experience. They're not willing to be given the time to make that experience shine. And yet they can go away to a foreign country and get a job like that in the same industry, and you're right, be paid at a way better wage, at a way better wage.
Has that brain drain and the need to find work elsewhere outside of Grand Bahama really negatively impacted this community?
I would think so.
It has.
I would think so, too.
Yeah. She says she would think so, but I can speak from the experience. I spent some time abroad and I didn't even want to come back home. But at a certain point, you have to not think of it like that. And you have to say, you know what? If I continue to think like that, more of my friends are going to think like that, and it'll continue to go on. Someone has to stop and say, you know what? I'll sacrifice, go home, and try to get it done. You can't talk about the problem without talking about the solution. Everyone knows what the problems are. Okay, it's been the same problems for the past 14 years. Let's start making proactive progress to actually get it done. And in order for you to do that, you have to get boots on the ground. You have to be the one going into the Port Authority, going to the government, going to the various ministries, and you're going to have to turn me around. And that's the mentality of the millennials today and the Gen Zs today. It's, you can tell me no.
That's true.
You can have to tell me no. And I will continue to try and try and try, and you're going to tell me no until you run out of reasons for why you're telling me no. And what that does now, and I've seen it, it's become so discouraging. You start up a project, right? Nowadays, startup capital is one of the hardest things to come across in the Bahamas. We don't have traditional venture capital companies. We don't have angel investors that way because Bahamians are more holders. They make money and they hold their money. They retain the wealth, pass it on to their generation, or just retain it until they go into the ground. But in the technology industry, in our industry, specifically blockchain and cryptocurrencies, you can launch an ICO, which is your tech equivalent to your IPO, where you structure a token, whether utility or security, and you launch it to the general public at a discount to raise millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in hours. Imagine you raising a Jerome Sawyer token, right? And
I like the sound of that. Go ahead.
and the token's utility is to access your platform. You could be your own Cable Bahamas in 15 to 20 minutes. You can launch your own network in 15 to 20 minutes just off that one coin. One particular ICO, that we were involved in, they raised $200 million in their first hour. They ended up collectively raising over $3 billion. So, and this was in 1 year time, and they still don't know what they're going to do with the money. So you're not educating the young people as to alternative ways to raise money to start businesses.
That's where I think education comes in great focus as well. And that's where someone like you can sit there and actually educate the youth. You should be on a platform educating the youth based on this. Because I don't think a lot of people understand it. We've talked about this before. A lot of people don't understand. They hear cryptocurrency, yes. Wow, Bitcoin.
Money. That's what they hear.
But how do we make it work?
Right.
So you're gonna have to do that. And you can. You'll have a voice and a platform.
We can't do it alone. A lot of pressure is put on the young people, but you have to understand, we're not in Parliament making the decisions. We're not in the Port Authority making the decisions. There isn't a think tank within the Port Authority focused on just tech initiative. There isn't the government just talked about launching one for blockchain technology, but there isn't, where is it? You understand? Where is it? I mean, talking about it is one thing, but doing it is another. The first step is to establish a Ministry of Technology. Simple.
Now there is a novel idea.
The Ministry of Technology. In China, they have a minister of ICT.
When I say novel,
technology.
I'm really being sarcastic, but go ahead.
but it's the fact. They talk about it, but you need a standalone ministry that's just focused on technology advancement within the country, whether it's educating and implementing. That's the first step.
Wow.
Well, you need a youth in there that's going to try to make the generation that's running the country currently
and understand
and find the interest in it, and that's where somebody like you comes along that can drive that initiative. You've got to get the ear, because you need to teach them. You need to teach them what it's all about.
The Bahamas has an ageism problem.
Yes, it does.
It's not that it's too big for me, it's too big for you, so it has to be too big for me. For you to wrap your mind around that, for you is like, what? It's like the first time you got the iPhone when you were on your keypads of your BlackBerry. You're like, what? Or your flip Razor phone, or it's like what?
Culture shock.
I'll take you back to the old one.
To the brick. There you go. Gwen, John, unfortunately, we are out of time. But I just have to tell you that, sometimes I sit down in the show and I have a particular idea of where I want to go. This was one of those shows where I knew hard and fast what I wanted to talk about. But I thank you for absolutely throwing that completely out of the window and having no, thank you for having the kind of discussion that was very unexpected in terms of how deep we went into the technology discussion and what needs to happen and needed to happen. And just sitting here was such an eye-opener for me and an awakening, and I thank you. And to have this discussion in this place, in this time, speaks volumes of where the potential lies. And I thank you so much for coming by, and best of luck to you in the continued success of your business. And I know that yours is still getting off the ground, so best of luck. And we have to talk about that. What is it, Jerome Sawyer coin?
Jerome Sawyer coin.
Yeah, we have to talk about that. Yeah, Sawyer token. See, we're talking to Tony over what happened. Yeah, all right, so thank you very much for stopping by. We've had a great discussion.
Well, this brings to a close another edition of On the Record. I'd just like to say, for the record, a special thank you to the people of Grand Bahama who have welcomed us and greeted us with open arms. We certainly trust that we have done them justice with trying to bring some real insight into some of the real issues here. We certainly thank you for your hospitality, and we promise that this certainly is not our last trip. Again, I'd like to thank, as always, my producer, technical staff, and entire team who worked so hard to bring this show and this series to you. On behalf of all of us, thank you so much. We'll see you next time, same place, same time, on the record.